Hello everyone, just a very quick update on what's going on in my life right now and what's been going on over the past month since I uploaded my last video. It's a sunny and humid day outside, and I'm holding out until the barber shops open up at the start of next week because I don't trust myself with cutting my own hair. I've been busy as usual, but I've been conflicted with several other factors. Right now, the gas station that I work at hasn't resumed its normal business hours, and it can't until someone else applies for a position, which has not gone well for us in the past, so yeah, I feel like I'm in a bit of a pickle right now, but I'm still very thankful that I'm one of the people in the US who has managed to maintain a job in this time of quarantine. But also, since my last video, there was a nationwide and arguably even worldwide eruption of protests regarding the whole Black Lives Matter movement ever since that nothing short of appalling incident of what happened to George Floyd, as well as other black citizens who've been casualties along the way. The implications that come with the notion that the cop who killed George Floyd was only charged for third-degree murder when what he committed was nothing short of cold-blooded murder to a man who did something that could at least have been let off with a warning is just sickening, to say the very least. Not to mention all the other lives that were lost up to this point in what's supposed to be a stand for justice. And the fact that other innocent black people, as well as other minorities, sometimes still get pulled over by the cops on a daily basis for doing things that white people wouldn't even bat an eye at. Granted, I too have to exercise being careful with every step I take whenever I go outside, due to my difference in being on the autism spectrum, which I fully acknowledge is not comparable to race in instances like this for a number of reasons. Ugh. But still, it's all been very hard for me to stomach, more than words can articulate. The more I see what goes on in the world, the more I just want to quote that classic Professor Farmsworth meme of, "I don't want to live on this planet anymore." And it makes me want to apologize for the numerous times that all of us analysts and reviewers on the internet carelessly use that meme to be hyperbolic when it comes to taking our anger out on a piece of fictional media. And far from me to try and pull the all lives matter bullshit when it's not my life that's being tested or threatened on a day-to-day basis because of my skin color. If you declare that you're a proud black or Hispanic citizen, it's a claim that you're proud of your heritage. If you declare that you're a proud white citizen, it's indicative of pride rooted in skin color. This all makes me feel so compelled and obligated to issue a major, major apology on behalf of every single person of my entire race who has ever lived in my country for clearly not having learned our lesson after all these centuries. And what's more is that my family lineage, on my father's side anyways, is descended from Germany, a country that already has to live with its history that's been permanently stained by one of the worst case records of mass genocide and systematic oppression. And I know I shouldn't try to act like I'm the most educated person on culture from other races, nor am I one to act as though I've never said anything ignorant or irresponsible to other people's plights. The general consensus among people of racial minorities in our country, I find, is that the biggest favor that a white person can do for them is get educated about their plight. I try to do that with every single person that I encounter, and I do not mean that in a manner that could come I do not mean for that to come off in a manner that could come off in similar veins similar to Black Lives Matter. I mean, all lives matter. I do my very best to hear out what everybody and anybody I do or don't know personally has to put up with on a day-to-day basis for such matters like, well, differences regarding race, orientation, or even disabilities, and I try to see if there's anything I can possibly do to help make the journey a little bit more durable. I have said in the past that I was friends on Facebook with people who are right-wing Trump supporters, and that in and of itself wasn't something that convinced me to cut ties with them. But if I ever saw someone being egregiously, willingly dismissive to the plight of those suffering and hurting, all in the name of their political beliefs and favoritisms, basically only being interested in hearing and believing what they want to hear and believe, that's when it becomes a deal breaker for me. Let's see. Now, you watching at home have every right to declare me a privileged white person in a white man's world. Of course, I firmly believe that it's not man's world, let alone white man's world. Or at least I do not believe it should be considered that. The world is no one person's for the taking, nor is it any specific group of people's for the taking. I would say that if any group of people really deserve this world, it's the people who are good, but I would even hesitate to say that because we've all been guilty of more than we realize, and goodness is not exactly quantifiable. Only standards for what is socially acceptable is. But I remain of the belief that it's good to at least attempt to see eye to eye with those whom you fear might be your worst enemies, and see if there's any hope of identifying them as having common human empathy. I do believe that it is possible because of a story I saw a few years ago about a woman of the Hitler Youth encountering a Jewish woman who was a Holocaust survivor, and they made peace with one another. I've been trying to do anything I could to try and spread as much productivity as possible on the internet on my Facebook and Instagram accounts, making some active donations out of my own bank account, or been watching videos where you could make a donation of one of these causes by watching it for just a few minutes without skipping ads. But I didn't make a video or journal entry on the matter just because I wasn't sure. But I didn't make a video or journal entry on this matter, not only because I wasn't sure about what exactly I wanted to say, but also because I didn't want to just be regurgitating what the rest of the internet was saying at the risk of it all coming out as words without any value or meaning. Now, I know that sounds absurd in a time where speaking out and having a voice is better than just staying silent, but the last thing I want to give anyone the impression of is that I'm only speaking out just to make myself look better and just pandering to what people want to hear. One thing I did consider making in light of the Black Lives Matter movement was a top 10 list of movies that I've seen in some recent years, a bunch throughout my high school years, that deal with the matter of racial oppression on multitudinal levels. Some examples include movies like Antoine Fisher, Freedom Riders, The Blind Side, and even The Rabbit-Proof Fence, which talks about the oppression of the Aborigines in Australia. In doing so to investigate other entries, one of the best films that I've seen recently is The Hate U Give, released in 2018, based on a novel by Angie Thomas, and by God, this movie really deserves to be seen by more people because it touches on so much of what we are currently facing, not just regarding systemic and systematic racism, but also the matter of how far is too far when it comes to asserting one's rights as a human being, the physical wars within the black community, when it comes to higher-up gangs threatening anyone who exposes them, some of the inner workings of a cop's mind that leads to police brutality, how careless white people can be when they are believing that they are not racist just because they're friends with interracial people, and that it's not about being colorblind, but rather accepting everything about oneself and others, including race, and the inspirational hardest stone quote of "something worth living is also something worth dying for." And I recognize that there are several other examples of media that I have yet to see, like The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And if you have any other examples of obscure, or in some cases not so obscure movies or shows you think are a must-watch to understand the nature of systemic and systematic racism, I would love to hear about them from you in the comments. I also invite discussion from anyone who wants to tell me anything I don't know and need to be educated on. And it's only been 3 years since Zootopia came out, and that almost seems like an eternity with all the worldwide hell that has broken loose in that time. And even if it is for kids, there is so much in it that is prevalent to what we face nowadays, more than we realize. Like when Judy Hopps apologizes to Nick Wilde for saying, "I know I can't make up for the way I wronged you, but I need to right the wrong I did for the sake of others." Even if their friendship was mended in the end, I do believe that the poignancy of the story does not always have to be reflected in how it resolves in the ending. Heck, Zootopia's happy ending might serve as a good lesson on the importance of forgiveness and not always being quick to assume the worst in people. Even the Avenue Q song Everyone's a Little Bit Racist, despite being upbeat and making light of matter where that now I really don't think is the time to be making light of, does still have a good message to remind us that racism does not extend to just being intentionally malignant or wanting to hurt people. In other news, though, I'm doing pretty well financially, although there is one thing I've got going on regarding my finances and benefits that I feel is a bit personal. I will say that it's not the worst thing to happen to me, and since it's something that I can lose and still be standing pretty strong for with her, it has led to some long and lengthy discussions between me and my family, and the system providing me these benefits really does not work well with the model it currently has. Even though it's not the worst thing in the world to happen to me, it still does linger in the back of my mind because some of these unpleasant feelings that can make it hard for me to relax and sleep at night. Partially because it does have to do with the fact that my mom's side of the family are a bunch of overachievers and perfectionists, which is both a blessing and a curse. Part of that being the curse part of that being that we are the hardest people on ourselves and feel racked with guilt over our most minor fuck-ups. And my big worry is that it's going to be... And my big worry about... One of my big worries in life is that me feeling racked with guilt over the most insignificant things is going to be a fatal flaw for me. I don't say that just to make this into a pity me party, but whenever I make these types of entries, they're my own form of logging a chapter in my life so that I can look back and recall what I was feeling at the time whenever I'm feeling like I'm in a totally different stage in life. It's also a good reminder that if I seem positive and confident in life, it's not because I've got everything figured out and have no insecurities. Far from it. Some of the personal battles I put up with in my life might be ones that I fight until the day I die. And I also want to serve that to be as a reminder to everybody else who watches these who might be going through something similar. In other news, the Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is still doing strong, and the author, Bill Boggs, is having everyone who is involved in bringing the book to life, myself included, to make sure that the book gets as much exposure as possible, even in bringing the book, even offering to go out and give some signed copies to people who want them. He recently was featured just a few days ago on New York's Channel 5, 33 years after he was a prominent highlight on the show, and I'll leave a link to his most recent interview in the description. And I've also been contacted by my local town to do a hand-painted mural for someone's building. I still have yet to get everything squared away before I can start that project, but it's still a pretty big deal for me, and I feel it is another big step towards having a full-time career as an artist. I am still proud that I've come this far in life, as I am about to turn 27, and I am so thankful to have all of you 60, and I'm so thankful to have 60 subscribers to my channel. I'm hoping that very soon I can start adding a bit more balance back into my life, so that we can start seeing more of a string of good being done in this world. But if one thing good has come out of this Black Lives Matter movement, it's that it's one thing that every country in this nation every state in this country has stood united over in a long time. See, I hope that I'll be able to make some more content for the rest of you soon, hoping that you all are staying safe and well at this time, that you're taking necessary precautions as per usual, even though we are trying to inch our way out of this pandemic, and I hope that I have more good news for you very soon. Take care.